Welcome. It is my honor and privilege to welcome Mr. Douglas Spitz, the global CEO of i2cure, to our BW Wellbeing of BW Business World. And we're going to talk to him about his products, about his brand, and what his further plans are. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and good morning.
Good morning, sir. Sir, how are i2cure products different from existing sanitizers?
The sanitizers that are currently on the market are generally made up of one of three different chemicals. And we're talking about what people use on their body.
Yes.
And that is alcohol, benzalkonium chloride, and chlorhexidine gluconate. All three of them, for long-term exposure, are toxic to human tissue. For the first time in history, the iodine, the molecular iodine molecule has been stabilized. We have stabilized it in formulation, and we have put that into a product that you can use safely every day, that not only is very effective upon application, but it is effective for long periods of times beyond 6 hours.
Okay.
Sir, if it is so effective, will it not be costly for the common man? What about the price point?
So we were very interested because, first and foremost, i2cure is a biotechnology company, and it was created initially to address conditions, diseases, and wounds of the skin. It just so happens that the pandemic intersected with the technology. And as an example, one of the things that we were very focused on is the vast tinea infection rates in India. And majority of them are in the southern half of the country. But in total, the 40% of the population has these infections. It takes about 2,000 rupees to address this type of infection. And we're looking to be able to create a therapy that will address it in roughly 500 to 600 rupees. The hand sanitizer, the bioshield antiseptic lotion, which we use on our hands and our nose, on our lips, when you take a look at the supply that someone would purchase and the length of time, our product is about 50% less expensive. So from a month to month use, the product is less expensive. And we're also manufacturing in single-use sachets. So every rung of the socioeconomic ladder will have access to buy it, because we're aware that some people just can't afford to buy a 1 month supply of anything, that they're buying things by the day, and we're making it available to everyone.
Okay, sir.
Sir, given that coronavirus is now popularly mutating in the United Kingdom, how effective do you think i2cure is going to be against the existing mutations?
Iodine doesn't care. There's not a mutation, there is not a pathogen that is resistant to molecular iodine. So the fundamental protection and security you receive from the product, it does not change based on the pathogen, based on the mutation. We were 99.999% effective against COVID-19 in our original test. we were 99.999% effective against a whole host of bacterial pathogen panels. And no matter what pathogen you put in our testing, lane, we will approximately be greater than 99.999% effective. So the mutations, the variants, what have you, we will have the same effectiveness.
Yes, sir. What is the marketing strategy, or I would like to maybe ask, what is the strategy you're using to build the trust in the people so that they can trust your product?
So, I just returned from 18 days in India, and it was I had a phenomenal experience. And the best part of talking about the product, especially going to visit government labs, going to visit health ministers, going to visit everyone who is interested in the product, asking the same types of questions you are right now, what I was able to do and show them, because I would bring the package with me, was I am not talking to you as someone who's trying to sell something, trying to differentiate a product because I have to figure out what is my swim lane. I had all the tests that a third-party US FDA certified laboratory required as part of my submission to the US FDA, verifying everything I was saying. So one of the greatest resources we have to prove and to educate the not only healthcare providers but the people at large is pure science, pure reports. Everything I tell you about the product is not things I believe, is not things that I understand. It is the pure evidence from third-party laboratories that I'm using for regulatory approval around the world.
So what about lab testing in India? Do you think we are at the American level FDA yet, or how can we improve?
So it's very interesting. Our chief scientist, Jack Kessler, has brought many products through US regulatory approvals. And as part of the registrations and certifications and approvals that we needed to get in India, we had lots of testing done. And every test that we got back, Dr. Kessler would look at and was absolutely impressed. He said, because we're talking about the GLP process. I remember one test we got back, and he picked up the phone. We were actually on a Zoom call, going through the test, and he said, "This is what a GLP test is supposed to look like." He was very impressed with the level of sophistication, the detail, the absolute accuracy of what is expected in the report. So our experience we've had testing done, I believe, in 3 or 4 different Indian labs. And every one of those experiences has been excellent.
The product is iodine based, so how effective against traditional sanitizers or alcohol based sanitizers is this?
So when you take a look at the traditional sanitizers, there are some pathogens they're very effective against, and there are some pathogens that are resistant, that are developing resistance to those formulations, those materials. The other thing is, let's call it for what it is. There's a pre-COVID time and there's a post-COVID time.
Yes.
And when you take a look at the legacy older sanitizers, they protected you, just like hand washing protects you from what you have already touched. When you wash your hands, you're washing the virus and the bacteria off your hands of what you have just touched. When you wash your hands and you go and you pick up an object, you open a door, you're immediately reinfecting your hands. What i2cure's bioshield does is it not only kills everything on contact, protecting you initially from what you have touched, but now you have advanced protection for what you're going to interact with. Because the US Center for Disease Control, the CDC, talks about frequent hand washing. And it says, wash your hands frequently with soap and water, and every hand washing, make sure you wash with soap for at least 20 seconds. Well, why are they recommending that? They're recommending that because they're constantly wanting you to reduce the viral load that your hands are carrying. Well, the bioshield is used on the hands, it's used in the nose and on the lips. And because it's persistent, it is constantly reducing that viral load, where you have next to very, very limited opportunity to have that virus enter the areas that the body collects virus. And that's why we've been so effective.
Fantastic.
So our persistence test, which was done at Choksi Labs in Delhi, had a group of individuals apply the product on their hands. After they applied the product on their hands, 5 minutes later, they washed their hands with soap and water. You can't wash the product. Once the product's on your hands, molecular iodine is absorbed into the skin and then is released as a vapor. This vapor creates that vapor barrier that keeps the pathogens from collecting on your surfaces that you've applied the material. So 5 minutes later, after application, they wash their hands with soap and water. At hour 1, hour 3, and hour 6, the hands were challenged in the same exact way. I will tell you about hour 6. The hands get saturated with Staph aureus, and the staph is allowed to remain in contact with the hands for 1 minute. It's washed off with a slurry to stop the killing action into sterile plastic bags, and then the colonies of live bacteria are counted to see how effective we were in 1 minute after 6 hours. We killed 90.3% of the bacteria that was saturated on the hands in 1 minute.
So i2cure believes in the adage of prevention is better than cure?
Prevention is always easier and simpler and less expensive than a cure. But I think, you have to be prepared for all contingencies. There are some times where you're going to need to cure. i2cure has products that will be curing disease. So there are some instances where we will be used as a cure. However, when it comes to COVID-19, we know that we are the best first line of defense against COVID-19. We've sold hundreds of thousands of bottles in India. And to date, and this is a statement that is not scientific, it's not clinical data, it is non-clinical anecdotal observations, because I have not personally gone out and talk to every one of these multi-hundreds thousands of users, but we try to collect information, and we do not have one reported COVID-19 infection from people who are using the product as described. In fact, the product has really caught on quite strongly within the healthcare community in the state of Calcutta, because some of the team members of the leading COVID response team that the state have been using the product for 5 months. They've remained healthy. They had peers fall ill with COVID-19, and then people started saying, "Why are you gentlemen staying healthy? What are you doing?" And all they did is they picked up the package and they go, "This is what we're using." So if you are in that healthcare network in Calcutta and you know about the product, you're not going to work without the product on board.
This was about COVID-19, but what about other pathogens? Is i2cure planning to diversify, or is this product equally effective against, say, tuberculosis bacteria?
So, to give you an idea, the bioshield only represents about 1% of the market opportunity for i2cure. I don't know if I should do this, but I'm going to do this. We are getting ready. Here's a scoop for you. We're getting ready to go into clinical trials in India to fight this. The World Health Organization, many different health organizations discuss the epidemic, which is tinea in India. This is the fungal infection that I was speaking of, that 40% of the population have, which we had a lot of focus on fighting. And what we've done is we've started our observational trials for this terrible infection. And what I'm going to show you is a tinea infection. And then as part of the observational trials to go into clinicals, what you do is you try to set up a few different formulations. You dose, how many times should we dose a day, for what period of time. So the protocols that we were setting up were twice a day for 14 days. That's a tinea infection.
Okay.
What I'm about to show you is just day 9 of the treatment. That's not the treatment, that's the treatment.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it's nearly gone now.
Yes.
It's all gone. And that's because for the first time in history, are you able to place a very active biocide that is in the skin and acting continuously against those pathogens while being in the skin. The problem with treating conditions of the skin is difficult to treat. What is the skin's main focus? Let's keep pathogens out of the body. In retrospect, the skin also doesn't have a great deal of blood flow. So it's difficult to get medicine, to get active ingredient into the skin and to fight these pathogens, these cells in every niche and cranny, if you will, that the skin can provide. So lots of times when these conditions get treated, they look like they're gone, and then they re-emerge shortly after treatment. But because we are being absorbed into the skin and then being released, we are active during the entire time of activity. So we really don't give those pathogens any chance of survival. So when I talked about toxicity and how effective we are against the pathogens with greater than 5 log reduction within 30 seconds, that's if you're a sanitizer or an antiseptic, the way they measure it is, what is your log reduction in pathogen in less than 30 seconds? At 5 log, we are 99.999% effective. What topical antiseptics, what sanitizers, what all of these other chemicals are not required to do is do a 24-hour human in vitro cytotoxicity study. This is a study that has been reserved for analyzing materials that are used long-term in the body. So if you're a manufacturer of a joint replacement, of a pacemaker, of bone glue, of different materials that are used long-term in the body, you have to figure out, are you toxic to human cells? Well, i2cure has done this test, again, with a certified FDA lab that has 1,000 global locations, and we were certified non-toxic to human cells in this ISO 10993-5-2009 study. So again, how do I teach people we're safe? How do I teach people we're effective? I show them the reports. I show them these are the global standards. This is a global laboratory. This is what they say. This isn't information that Douglas Spitz is making up to try to sell a product. This is a technology that we created. And let me be very clear, the technology to isolate and stabilize molecular iodine is what we've created. We have not created anything new. Iodine has been the gold standard of skin disinfection for 200 years. The problem is, it's also been toxic. It's also caused skin irritation. It's also caused atopic dermatitis. It's also caused undue exposure to other iodine species. And in one case, it even killed somebody who a doctor injected povidone iodine into someone's knee, and they died of acidosis because povidone iodine has a pH of 3.6, and that was blamed on iodine. But with the recent studies, with the recent publications of what we've done, we have proven that 65 years of literature that povidone iodine has put out about molecular iodine is mostly false. And we have now created the near perfect antimicrobial material.
Fantastic, sir. So how do you feel people? How do you think that people are receptive in India? Like, how receptive are they in India, according to you?
Very. You know, I never had one meeting that resulted in a, well, let me think about it, or I'm not sure. Because unlike other products, I can actually do a test right in front of you and show you how the product works, because I'll do a little demonstration.
Sure, sir.
So what I do is I use just a white piece of printer paper. And I put a drop of i2cure on the white paper. And when i2cure comes out, it comes out a color that people normally associate with iodine.
Yes,
And then I rub it into the paper. Well, the word iodine comes from the Greek, meaning violet colored. So when I start rubbing it into the paper, what happens is the iodine migrates out of the formulation and then into the paper, just like it migrates out of the formulation and into your skin. But what happens is, as it's doing that, it goes from that amber color to a purple color because violet's purple.
yes.
Now, I give them the paper, and I probably should have done this test with you right from the beginning, because I tell them, you keep this with you and give me a call in 8 hours, or call me tomorrow morning, because this paper in 8 hours is going to be perfectly white. Because just like the molecular iodine is in your skin and it off-gases out of your skin to create that vapor barrier, it does the same thing in a white piece of printer paper.
Sir, when will it be available to the common man? Are we going to go to our pharmacy and buy it, or is it available only online?
Right now it's available online, and we are working with distributors to get it into stores and have it available. But you can buy it at the i2cureshop.com right now.
So, are you diversifying beyond corona to other viruses or diseases?
So, not only are we diversifying beyond corona, not only are we, so we're going to be able to treat viral, bacterial, and fungal infections of the skin. We're going to be able to treat chronic and acute wounds of the skin. And we're very focused on creating an animal of a agricultural line, because India has the largest dairy herd in the world.
Yes.
And the average farmer, unlike the US, who has, the farmers have these huge herds of dairy cows, the average farmer has about 3 to 4 cows, and they bring their daily milking to the co-op. Well, based on disease, it's understood that the average farmer loses 1,400 rupees per cow per lactation. And that is devastating. And if we can stop that from happening, we can increase their annual income nearly 50%. So we're very focused on not only curing the people, but by putting more people to work, we're going to raise GDP. But by increasing the quality of the product that the livestock are producing, will also have an impact on GDP, and also potentially have an impact on additional exports that India will potentially have.
Yes, sir. Health has a profound impact on economics. And before we let you go for the day, I would like your view on how health entrepreneurship has changed in the last 8 months since the lockdown has been imposed, and any advice for our budding entrepreneurs?
It's a really good question, because the question you're asking has impact holistically on humans, because there is not only a physical body health aspect, there is a physical, meaning a cardiovascular, because people are now more sedentary, that they've been kind of confined. There is a mental health aspect because of what the pandemic has done, and then there's a spiritual aspect. And I think you're seeing lots of different organizations and entrepreneurs try to bridge this chasm, this divide of what the pandemic has created, because it truly has kept us from behaving like humans are supposed to behave. And I will tell you that I was honored to be a guest at a wedding while I was in India. And the people, of course, were using i2cure, and it was a senior officer in the region that invited me, and this individual's mother, who's 82 years old, came up to me and thanked me. And she said, "I would like to thank you because for 7 months I have been locked in my house. And now I feel comfortable to go out. You have given me hope, and you have reinvigorated me to live my life." So not only does our product provide the protection, we realize that our product also impacts the psychological and emotional health of people. And I think that when entrepreneurs and businesses look at how do people behave now that the pandemic has hit us, and what type of behaviors is that going to create moving forward, I think the best my advice to entrepreneurs ultimately, after this rambling answer to your question, is that the best business, the best technology, the best solutions that you could create would allow people to behave more normally, or back to where their previous COVID behaviors were. People need to behave like human beings, and having them be isolated and distanced and all of this, it's not natural. And if you can provide some type of product that allows people the normalcy of living, I think you will be successful.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you.